One of the most frustrating things that I see my clients going through during an unwanted separation or divorce is their ex-wife's behavior being hot and cold. It drives them crazy and is so frustrating and aggravating and produces so much anxiety, because one minute she can be like this cold ice queen or just downright mean and nasty and aggressive, and the next she's like friendly and kind of seems like the woman you married, or she might even be outright affectionate. And so what are you supposed to do with that? What does it mean? And I hear this a lot from my clients on coaching calls and Better Beyond Divorce. They'll come and they'll say, wow, Rachael, like, how am I supposed to interpret this behavior? Right? She sent me this horrible email. She's been yelling at me. We're fighting over custody. But then we went to my kid's doctor's appointment and she was like joking with me and teasing me. And like, what am I supposed to make of all of this? And it's what I see it doing to a lot of men is it activates that little sliver of hope that you have that maybe you can reconcile. And now you might know that this relationship is over. You might know that the marriage is done, this divorce is happening. You might even have done enough work on yourself and enough reflection on the marriage to recognize that that's maybe a good thing for you too, even if it's not what you wanted. And yet this hot and cold behavior lights up that little part of you that's like, yeah, but what if? What if we could fix it? What if we could go back to all of the good times and just have those without all of the painful times? It's very rare that I see a man that doesn't at least have some sliver of hope, some part of his brain that is still holding on to that desire, even if the rest of his conscious mind knows that it's over and it's time to let go and move on. So that hot and cold behavior is incredibly aggravating. And I'm going to give you a framework for understanding what it's really about so that it's not so confusing and painful for you. There's a psychological model that I'm going to share with you. It's something that I teach in my Better Beyond Divorce program, and I think it'll be really helpful for you in understanding your ex-wife or soon-to-be ex-wife's hot and cold behavior. So this is just a model. This is not an absolute description of how the brain works, but it is a useful model that describes a lot of features of the human brain and how our brains work. So according to this model, we have three essential parts of ourselves. We have a healthy self, a survival self, and a wounded self. So the healthy self is the person we are when we feel safe. It's our grounded, relaxed, joyful, calm part of ourselves. And in terms of the human nervous system, the healthy self happens when we're in that polyvagal green zone, right? Where we're in a well-regulated nervous system state. We can move gently in and out of sympathetic and parasympathetic activation to digest our food, respond to life situations. We're really resilient in this state. And we have a very balanced memory of the past, a clear vision of the future. And when we're in that healthy self, it's really easy for us to step into other people's shoes and imagine what they might be feeling or how they might be experiencing something. But when we feel threatened, when we get activated, all of that goes out the window. We start to go into fight or flight. When we're in a fight or flight or freeze response, we're operating from the survival self. And this is, according to this psychological model, it is the part of ourselves that is really responsible for all of our coping mechanisms, defense mechanisms, and survival strategies. It is the part that keeps us alive when shit hits the fan. In terms of nervous system language, the survival self describes all of the changes that happen in the brain when you go into fight or flight. So when we go into fight or flight, our vision of the future shrinks or even disappears when we're up in the freeze state because we need to be present. The danger is happening now. I need to respond now. I really can't afford to worry about tomorrow because if I don't survive right now, there is no tomorrow. Right? And likewise, my memory of the past starts to change. Instead of pulling up a balanced view of the past, if I'm in fight or flight, I'm only going to see memories that correspond to the fight or flight state. So I'm going to remember other things that made me angry, other things that made me afraid, other things that made me anxious, because my brain is looking for patterns. Right? The brain is a master of pattern recognition. And it's like, I'm not safe, I'm in danger. What information do I have from the past that can help me survive this? I don't need to remember all those happy days out on the beach or the family holidays. Like, none of that's going to help me survive what's happening now. So the survival self does not have a balanced memory of the past. It does not have a clear vision of the future. It is all about how do I stay alive right now? And it is vicious. If it's activated strongly enough, the survival self will do almost anything to stay alive. And then there's the wounded self. And the wounded self is really where the survival self got created. The wounded self is describing the part of the brain that's still holding the neural pathways and the memories of the times that we were hurt. And usually this goes back to childhood wounds, but the wounded self is often holding on to wounds from adulthood as well. But this is where the survival self learned that at some point it has to protect us. So you can almost picture the survival self as this like big burly beast out there with like a little tiny crying child behind it. And the survival self will do anything to keep that child safe and protect it from further pain. But the survival self is a bit of a bully, and it doesn't have much respect for the healthy self. And now most of us don't like our survival selves. We don't like the things that we do or the people that we become when we're really angry or really afraid. We see those actions we take as wrong, as overreactions often. Sometimes other people judge us for them, or if we're acting out of fear, we see that behavior as weak or stupid. And so because we have all these judgments on our survival self's actions, we tend to really shun that part of ourselves and try to ignore it or forget that it exists or suppress it. And so we don't have a relationship usually between the healthy self and the survival self. So if we don't feel safe, if we get activated into fight or flight, survival self comes on board and it's like, screw you, healthy self. You've been pushing me into a hole for way too long. I'm driving the car now. I'm in charge. And you probably have noticed this in yourself. How many times have you said something or done something that you look back at later and you really regret? But in the moment, maybe in the moment you even knew on some level that this wasn't the right thing to do or the right thing to say, but you said it anyway because you just really didn't care and you were so angry or so afraid in that moment. That's when you were in the survival self. So what does this all have to do with your ex-wife? Well, her hot and cold behavior, she's not intentionally trying to lead you on or confuse you or mess with your head. She's just in a different state. She's in a different part of self when she's hot and when she's cold. An unwanted divorce throws your nervous system into an automatic fight or flight response, causing you to lose sleep, lose or gain weight, struggle to focus at work, have panic or rage attacks, and ultimately damage relationships with the people you care about the most. Because of this, learning effective nervous system regulation is the only rational response to a separation or divorce, and that's exactly what I teach in my free masterclass. Type masterclass into the comments below and I'll send you the link. So the behavior where she's friendly, or even affectionate, or open to you, or kind to you, she's in her healthy self. Somebody who is steadily in their healthy self can go through a divorce compassionately, amicably, with friendly love, kindness, connection. It's rare. It's very rare, actually, in our society, but it does happen. I've even had the privilege of meeting couples that have been able to move through divorce with both of them staying in their healthy selves. But when your ex is being cold or mean, she's in her survival self. And the survival self has all kinds of tools. It can be mean and vicious. It can withdraw and shut down. It can close you out. It really depends on her survival self, on how she's learned to protect herself and cope. But what's really important for you to see is that, well, there's a couple of things. One is that when she's cold or mean, that's not a reflection of who you are or what you did. It's only a reflection of her current nervous system state. It means she's activated. It means she doesn't feel safe. This is how her survival self behaves. This is who her survival self is. And so often men will tell me, like, I don't even know who this woman is anymore. Yeah, well, you never really met her survival self before. Right? She's the same person. She's still in there. But this is when she's in a highly activated state. This is what her survival self looks like. But then the other thing that you need to know is that when she's in her healthy self, that doesn't mean you guys are getting back together. Right? Just because she's calm and kind or nice or open or has a conversation or sends you a nice message or sends you a birthday card or gives you a hug, that doesn't mean she wants to be with you. It doesn't mean that she wants to have a relationship with you. And it is not her trying to confuse you or lead you on. It's just that in that moment, she's in that healthy self. So she has a balanced memory of the past and a clear vision of the future in that state, which means that while she's aware of the problems that were in the marriage and the reason she wants the divorce, she's also in that state, in that calm nervous system state, in her healthy self, she also has access to the good memories. She remembers the good times with you. She remembers the good qualities about you. In her healthy self state, she knows the good and the bad. She knows it's not all your fault, but she still has a clear vision of the future in that moment. So she still sees why she's filing for divorce. She has a vision of where she's going and how she's going to get there, but she also has this balanced memory of the past in that state. So in those moments of connection, she's in her healthy self, she's not activated. When she's cold or aggressive, she's activated and in the survival state. Neither of those states, her hot or cold, neither one is about you. It is not a judgment on you. You didn't create those states in her. You are not going to be able to make her move from one state to the other just because you want to. She might blame you when she's in her survival state, but if it was that easy for you to change her nervous system state, you would have done it already. So her being hot or cold, all that tells us is what her nervous system state is. It doesn't tell us anything else. It just tells us, is she activated? How activated is she? How mean or how cold she's being? It means she's that much more activated. She's that much more unsafe or threatened in that moment, and she's that much more in her survival self. You can use this information to help you, right? Because when she's in her healthy self, when she's grounded, that's a good time to talk to her. It's a good time to try to communicate, to discuss the divorce settlement, to discuss custody. If you are in a position where there's a chance of reconciling and that's something you're trying to pursue, when she's in that state, that would be the time to talk about it. If you're in a stage where that conversation could be valuable, which honestly for most people, reconciliation happens differently. It happens through both of you doing work on yourselves and then recognizing that in one another. My main takeaway that I hope you're hearing from this is don't take her being hot and cold so personally. It is not about you, not in the way that you think it is. It's just about her nervous system state. It's not about who you are, what you've done in that moment, and it's not even a reflection of how she feels about you. It is just a reflection of what state she's in the moment. I hope this is a helpful frame for you. If it is, please come with me into this next video, her actual reasons for divorce, where we're going to talk about what that vision for the future that she's holding really is, why she's filing for divorce, what's really driving this, so that you can stop banging your head against the wall trying to answer that question. So come with me into this next video, and I will see you there. The fight or flight response that you experience when you go through an unwanted divorce is not a voluntary response. It's not something you can just shut off. The impact of being in that involuntary state for too long can be really devastating. We're talking overwhelming emotions, shaking, heart palpitations, lashing out in rage, shutting down and withdrawing, being unable to show up at work, struggling to be present with your children, and finding yourself unable to trust or feel safe in the world. And all of these symptoms, they are not mental. This is part of a specific set of physiologic changes that happen in your body when you go into a fight or flight response. They happen when your nervous system is activated, and the symptoms go away when your nervous system comes back into balance. If you want to get off the emotional roller coaster, if you want to stop the intrusive and ruminating thoughts so that you can be really present with your kids, still be successful in your career, make sound legal decisions, and really be capable of moving forward from the separation or divorce, it is essential that you learn to effectively regulate your nervous system. And that's exactly what I'll teach you how to do inside my free masterclass. So just type masterclass into the comments below this video, and I will send you this free tutorial on effective nervous system regulation.